Have you ever had one of those moments where someone ruins your day? Just a few words. Think about it. You're at a family gathering. A relative makes a snide comment in front of everyone, then smiles like it's no big deal. Hours later, the party's over, everyone's relaxing at home. You're still awake thinking about it. What if you had responded? Why did they say that? You're angry over again. The thing is, they're sleeping peacefully. They've taken over your mind for the night. That's really dangerous. People think manipulation means controlling someone, but that's not it. The real trick is controlling emotions without touching you. It happens all the time in life. Some people poke at you just to see you react and feel powerful. Others drain your energy with complaining. Then there are those who create drama, spread rumors, or guilt-trip people wherever they go. If you react every time they get inside your head without you realizing it. That's why many people go through life feeling mentally exhausted, not because life's too hard, but because they've let too many people control their emotions. Endless talking, arguments, people invading your mind without permission. Machiavelli said something that's hard for most people to understand. Attention is power. Whoever controls your focus controls your mood. That's why calm people scare manipulators. They're not weak. There are no quick responses to every insult. No wasting energy on people who won't listen no matter what. Zero effort spent trying to fix toxic people. This video shows you how to protect your mind when everyone's trying to drain your energy. You'll see how manipulators take your focus, why your silence throws them off, and the simple trick to ignore the ones who feed off your reactions. If you value your attention, you become a fortress to shake, impossible to control, and a nightmare to wear down. Before we move forward, hit the comments with this: "My peace has value." Let's go. Chapter 1. The Currency of Power. When people hear the word power, they usually imagine obvious things: money, physical strength, fame, control over others. But real life teaches something different. The people who quietly shape everybody around them are often not the loudest people in the room. They're the people who understand value. More specifically, they understand where value should and should not be spent. A wise person treats attention the same way a careful man treats his last bottle of water in the desert. He does not pour it everywhere, because once your mental energy is gone, everything becomes harder. Simple conversations become irritating. Small problems feel bigger than they are. Your patience disappears. Your thinking becomes emotional instead of clear. And most people never connect the dots. They think exhaustion only comes from hard work. But many times, exhaustion comes from carrying too many unnecessary people inside your head. Look at everyday life. There are families where one person's mood controls the entire house. If that person wakes up angry, everybody becomes careful. The atmosphere changes immediately. People speak differently around them, children become quieter, even peaceful moments start feeling tense. Now ask yourself something. Why does one person have that much influence over everybody else emotionally? Because everyone around them has unconsciously handed over emotional authority. Their peace depends on that person's behavior. That is dangerous. A stable mind should not collapse every time another human being changes moods. But this happens constantly in social life. Some people become emotional prisoners without realizing it. One family member's opinion ruins their confidence. One harsh sentence changes their whole day. One disagreement follows them mentally for an entire week. And over time, this creates a fragile personality. A person who constantly absorbs emotional pressure from others slowly loses inner stability. You can see it in their face. Their mind always looks busy, always crowded, always carrying invisible weight. Meanwhile, there are other people who move through life differently, calmly, slowly, They don't rush emotionally. They don't absorb every atmosphere around them. And because of that, people often describe them as strong-minded. But strength of mind is rarely natural. Most of the time, it comes from learning what deserves emotional investment and what doesn't. That lesson changes everything. Because life becomes lighter when you stop treating every problem like a personal attack. Think about how much conflict exists simply because people cannot let things pass. A careless comment turns into a 3-day argument. A misunderstanding becomes family division for years. Now everybody wants the last word. Everybody wants victory. But nobody asks the important question, is this even worth my peace? Machiavelli understood something uncomfortable about human nature. Many conflicts continue, not because they matter, but because human ego hates feeling ignored. That's why people often react harder when they feel dismissed than when they feel insulted. A person can tolerate disagreement, but being emotionally unimportant to someone, that hurts pride deeply. And manipulative personalities know this very well. They know how to pull others into emotional traps without using force. Sometimes they do it through guilt, sometimes through criticism, sometimes through constant negativity, and sometimes through endless talking. Have you ever spent time with someone who drains you mentally, even though nothing dramatic happened? You leave the conversation feeling tired for no clear reason. That's because energy is affected by emotional atmosphere. Some people constantly bring heaviness into every interaction. Every topic becomes a complaint. Every discussion becomes stress. Every gathering becomes gossip about somebody else. And if you stay around this too long without protecting your mental space, you slowly become emotionally polluted yourself. That's another truth most people ignore. The mind adapts to whatever surrounds it repeatedly. If your environment is full of tension, your nervous system starts expecting tension. You become jumpy, defensive, irritated more easily. Even peaceful silence begins feeling unfamiliar. This is why protecting your attention is not just about avoiding bad people. It's about protecting your inner environment. Because eventually, your inner world shapes your outer life. A distracted mind makes poor decisions. An emotionally overcrowded mind struggles to think clearly. And clarity matters more than people realize. One calm decision can save years of regret. One emotional decision can create years of suffering. That's why disciplined people value mental silence. Not literal silence all the time. Mental silence, space inside the mind. The ability to sit peacefully without replaying 20 conversations at once. The ability to enjoy a moment without carrying emotional leftovers from yesterday. Most people have lost this ability. Even during quiet moments, their mind keeps fighting invisible battles. They argue with imaginary versions of people. They rehearse future conflicts. They relive old embarrassment. Their body is resting, but their mind never stops running. That's not peace. That's mental captivity. And sadly, society often rewards emotional impulsiveness. People praise dramatic reactions. Explosive personalities get attention. Loud people dominate rooms. Meanwhile, calm individuals are sometimes underestimated at first. But over time, emotionally disciplined people gain something louder personalities never fully achieve: respect that lasts. Because people eventually trust stable energy more than emotional chaos. Nobody feels safe around someone unpredictable. Nobody relaxes around a person whose mood changes every hour. But people naturally feel drawn toward emotional steadiness. It creates psychological safety. And this is where true influence begins, not through fear, but through control over yourself. A person who controls themselves becomes difficult to control externally. That's real power. And you can notice it immediately when someone has it. They listen more than they speak. They don't chase attention desperately. They don't interrupt constantly. They don't become emotionally loud just to feel seen. There's a quiet confidence in them, not arrogance, not coldness, just self-possession. Meanwhile, emotionally needy people constantly search for stimulation from others, approval, validation, reaction, recognition. And because they depend so heavily on outside emotional responses, their peace becomes unstable. If people praise them, they feel high. If people criticize them, they collapse. Their emotional state always belongs to the crowd. That's an exhausting way to live, because the crowd changes constantly. Opinions change constantly. Human moods change constantly. So, if your emotional balance depends on external behavior, your life will always feel uncertain. This is why attention must be treated carefully. Where you place it matters. Who receives it matters. What consumes it matters. Because your attention slowly becomes your reality. If negativity consumes your focus daily, negativity starts shaping your personality. If drama fills your environment constantly, peace begins feeling strange. If emotional chaos becomes normal, stability starts feeling boring. And many people don't realize this transformation is happening until years pass. That's why wise people become selective. Not because they hate others, but because they understand access. Everybody should not have unlimited access to your emotions, your thoughts, or your mental space. Some people enter your life and improve your peace. Others enter and quietly destroy it. Learning the difference is one of the most important skills a person can develop, because life becomes much clearer once you stop giving emotional importance to everything around you. And when your attention finally belongs to you again, your mind becomes stronger, calmer, and far more difficult to shake. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My mind belongs to me. Chapter 2. Identifying the attention vampires. One of the most dangerous mistakes people make in life is believing that every person around them deserves equal emotional access. They don't. Some people bring calmness into your life. Others quietly drain your spirit, little by little, until you no longer recognize yourself. And the strange part is, emotional drain rarely looks dangerous at first. It usually looks normal. A conversation, a family gathering, a small interaction that leaves you mentally exhausted afterward. That's why attention vampires are difficult to notice in the beginning. They don't always attack directly. Many times they survive through emotional consumption. Your focus becomes their fuel. Your reactions become entertainment. Your patience becomes something they continuously feed on. And if you never learn to identify these personalities, you can spend years emotionally tired without understanding why. There are 3 common types you'll meet throughout life, and once you see them clearly, you stop giving them unlimited access to your mind. Number 1, the chaos provoker. This person feels alive when tension exists around them. Peace feels boring to them. Silence feels uncomfortable, so they constantly create emotional sparks everywhere they go. You'll notice them at family events first. Everything can be going smoothly, people laughing, eating, enjoying themselves. Then suddenly they say something sharp, a disrespectful joke, an unnecessary comparison, a comment designed to embarrass somebody publicly, and the moment the atmosphere changes, they become energized. Sometimes they even smile slightly while pretending they didn't mean anything by it. But deep down, they know exactly what they're doing. Chaos provokers study emotional weaknesses carefully. They pay attention to insecurities, sensitive topics, old wounds. Then they touch those areas casually whenever they want attention. And the worst thing you can do with this type of person is react emotionally every single time, because reaction rewards the behavior. Imagine a child discovering that pressing a button causes noise and movement. What happens next? They keep pressing it. Human beings are not very different emotionally. If somebody learns they can instantly disturb your peace, they will repeat the behavior whenever they feel bored, insecure, or powerless in their own life. That's why chaos provokers often become frustrated around emotionally disciplined people. Their usual tactics stop working. The tension they try to create simply dies in the air, and without emotional reactions feeding them, they lose influence. But many people fall into the trap because pride gets involved. They feel the need to defend themselves immediately, to win the moment, to prove strength publicly. Yet most unnecessary conflict survives because both sides keep feeding it attention. Without fuel, emotional fires die quickly. The chaos provoker understands this better than most people realize. That's why they constantly search for emotional fuel. Number 2, the energy sucker. This type is different, less aggressive, more draining. After spending time with them, you feel mentally heavy even if nothing dramatic happened. Every conversation becomes emotionally exhausting. Every topic becomes negative. They complain constantly, but never change anything. Life is always unfair to them. People are always against them. Problems follow them everywhere. And at first, compassionate people usually feel sympathy for this personality. They want to help. They listen patiently. They give advice. They offer emotional support over and over again. But eventually they notice something strange. Nothing improves. The same complaints return every week. The same stories repeat endlessly. The same emotional burden gets placed onto their shoulders again and again. Because some people do not want solutions, they want emotional dependence. There are individuals who build their identity around suffering so deeply that healing would remove the attention they receive from others. So, instead of fixing problems, they recycle pain endlessly. And if you are not careful, they slowly pull you into emotional exhaustion beside them. You begin carrying stress that never belonged to you. Your peace disappears because their emotional storms become part of your daily mental life. This doesn't mean compassion is weakness. It means boundaries are necessary. You cannot save people by drowning beside them. And one of the hardest lessons in adulthood is realizing that some people will happily unload emotional weight onto you every day while doing absolutely nothing to improve their situation. That cycle can quietly consume years of your energy, especially if you are naturally patient or empathetic. Because kind-hearted people often feel guilty for protecting themselves. They think distance means cruelty, but protecting your peace is not cruelty, it's emotional survival. Number 3, the validation seeker. This type is extremely common, and society often encourages their behavior without realizing the damage it creates. Validation seekers constantly need emotional reassurance from others to feel important. Everything becomes performance. Every interaction becomes an attempt to gain attention, praise, sympathy, or recognition. If they tell a story, they exaggerate it. If somebody else receives attention, they quickly redirect focus back toward themselves. If another person shares pain, they somehow turn the conversation into their own struggle within minutes. And over time, being around them becomes exhausting because nothing feels genuine anymore. They are emotionally hungry all the time. You'll notice validation seekers, especially in social environments. They constantly interrupt, constantly seek approval, constantly fish for compliments indirectly. Even silence makes them uncomfortable because silence removes the spotlight. And if they feel ignored for too long, many of them create emotional scenes just to pull attention back toward themselves. The dangerous part is that validation seekers can quietly consume enormous amounts of time and mental energy. A simple conversation turns into an hour. A quick visit becomes emotionally draining. You leave feeling like your presence existed only to feed another person's ego. And sadly, many people stay trapped around personalities like this because they fear appearing rude. So they continue listening endlessly, continue reassuring endlessly, continue sacrificing emotional energy endlessly. Meanwhile, their own inner peace slowly disappears. This is why emotionally intelligent people learn selective attention. Not everybody deserves unlimited emotional investment. Not every conversation deserves extended energy. Not every person deserves complete access to your time. Because attention is not infinite. Your mind has limits. Your emotional capacity has limits. And when you continuously give your focus to draining personalities, you eventually have nothing left for yourself, your goals, your peace, or the people who genuinely matter. That's why identifying attention vampires changes your life. You stop confusing access with kindness. You stop believing patience means tolerating emotional exhaustion forever. You stop sacrificing mental stability just to avoid disappointing, manipulative people. And most importantly, you begin noticing how certain individuals behave when they stop receiving unlimited attention from you. Some become irritated immediately. Some guilt trip you. Some disappear entirely because they were never connected to you emotionally in the first place. They were connected to the energy you provided. That realization can hurt, but it can also free you. Because once you understand who constantly drains your spirit, you finally learn where your peace has been leaking all these years. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I protect my peace carefully. Chapter 3. The Machiavellian Shield. There's a moment in life that changes a person completely. It usually happens quietly, just a small realization. You finally understand that not everybody deserves a response from you. And once that lesson truly sinks in, your life starts becoming lighter. Because before that moment, most people live as emotional servants to everybody around them. If someone questions them, they rush to explain themselves. If someone misunderstands them, they desperately try to correct the misunderstanding. If someone spreads negativity, they feel pressure to defend their name immediately. It's exhausting. And the strange part is, the more emotionally available you become to difficult people, the less peaceful your life feels. That's why one of the most powerful psychological skills is learning how to emotionally exit situations without carrying them home with you. Most people never learn this. A conversation ends physically, but mentally it continues for hours, sometimes days. They replay tone of voice, facial expressions, specific words, tiny details. Meanwhile, the other person has already moved on completely. Think about how much life people waste mentally reliving moments that no longer exist. A disrespectful comment at dinner, an awkward family interaction, a rude opinion from somebody they barely even like. And somehow, those moments become emotional prisoners living inside the mind. This is where the Machiavellian shield becomes practical. It's the ability to close mental doors. Not every experience deserves permanent emotional residence inside you. That's the mistake emotionally overwhelmed people make. They allow temporary moments to become permanent emotional weight. And over time, their personality changes because of it. They become mentally crowded, too alert, too emotionally loaded. Their nervous system never fully relaxes because their mind is constantly carrying unfinished emotional tension. You can see this clearly in people who grew up around constant conflict. Even when life becomes peaceful later, they still expect emotional attacks everywhere. A simple disagreement feels threatening. Silence feels suspicious. Criticism feels deeply personal. Why? Because the mind adapts to survival mode if it stays there long enough. That's why emotionally disciplined people protect recovery time carefully. After stressful interactions, they reset themselves instead of mentally replaying everything all night. They go for a walk, sit quietly, read, exercise, spend time alone. Not to escape life, but to clear emotional residue before it hardens inside them. Most people underestimate emotional residue, but emotions leave traces. You can walk into a room after an argument and feel tension immediately without anyone saying a word. Human beings absorb atmosphere deeply. That's why some homes feel peaceful, while others feel heavy the moment you enter. And some individuals carry emotional heaviness everywhere they go. Not because they are evil, but because they never learned how to release negativity properly. So it spreads outward into every relationship around them. This is another reason silence becomes powerful. Silence gives your emotions time to settle before they become actions. Without that pause, people often create damage they later regret. A father says something cruel in anger. A brother cuts off family over pride. Then, later comes regret. But by then, words already left the mouth. And words are strange things. People remember emotional wounds for years, sometimes decades. That's why mature people become careful with emotional impulses. Not because they are weak, because they understand consequences. Every emotional reaction creates movement. Some movements build peace. Others create destruction that keeps spreading long after the moment ends. Machiavelli understood human beings react emotionally first and rationally second. That's why calmness gives advantage. While everybody else rushes emotionally, the calm person sees clearly. They notice patterns others miss. They recognize manipulation faster. They observe motives more accurately. And observation matters, because life becomes easier when you stop judging people by words alone. Words are easy. Behavior tells the real story. Anybody can apologize. Anybody can promise change. Anybody can speak softly when necessary. But patterns reveal character over time. That's why emotionally intelligent people stop getting trapped by emotional performances. They stop falling for temporary guilt, temporary kindness, temporary tears. Instead, they quietly watch consistency. And this protects them from being emotionally controlled repeatedly. Many people suffer because they keep listening to words while ignoring behavior. A person disrespects them repeatedly, but gives emotional apologies afterward. So the cycle continues, again and again, until years pass. That's why wisdom often looks emotionally detached from the outside, not heartless, just realistic. Realistic enough to accept what somebody continuously shows you. And once you develop this mindset, your relationships start changing naturally. You stop chasing people who only contact you during emotional convenience. You stop forcing closeness with individuals who repeatedly disturb your peace. You stop over-explaining your boundaries. Because another sign of emotional maturity is understanding that healthy people respect boundaries without needing endless explanations. Manipulative people, however, often become angry when access gets reduced. They interpret boundaries as rejection because they benefited from unlimited emotional access before. Suddenly, you answer less, engage less, argue less, and they notice immediately. Not because you became rude, because your energy is no longer constantly available. That shift changes social dynamics more than people realize. Some relationships survive healthier after boundaries. Others collapse completely. And honestly, that reveals something important. Strong relationships survive honesty. Weak relationships survive dependency. That's why the Machiavellian shield is not just about silence. It's about emotional selectiveness, choosing carefully where your emotional energy goes, because energy shapes reality. If all your emotional energy goes towards stress, chaos, guilt, and tension, eventually your life starts feeling emotionally suffocating. But when energy gets redirected toward peace, clarity, discipline, meaningful people, and personal growth, your entire internal world changes. You become more stable, more patient, more focused, and perhaps most importantly, you stop fearing other people's reactions so much. That fear controls many lives. Fear of disappointing people, fear of upsetting relatives, fear of being misunderstood, fear of seeming distant. So people sacrifice their own peace just to maintain emotional comfort for everybody else. But eventually that creates resentment, because humans cannot endlessly betray themselves internally without emotional consequences. Sooner or later, exhaustion appears. That's why emotionally strong people accept something difficult. You cannot keep everybody comfortable and protect your peace at the same time. Sometimes choosing yourself disappoints others. And that's okay, because protecting your inner stability is not selfish. It's necessary, especially in a world where many people unconsciously pull emotional energy from whoever allows it. The Machiavellian shield simply means this: your mind is no longer public property. Not every opinion enters. Not every emotional demand receives access. Not every conflict deserves your spirit. And once you truly live this way, life becomes quieter inside your head. Chapter 4. The 6 Laws of the Gold Guard. Understanding human behavior is important, but knowledge alone changes nothing. A person can recognize manipulation clearly and still keep losing peace every single day. Why? Because awareness without discipline is useless. That's why this chapter matters more than anything we've discussed so far. These are practical laws, simple habits that protect your emotional energy in everyday life. Not fantasy, not complicated psychology theories. Real actions that quietly change the way people affect you. And once these habits become natural, something shifts inside you. You stop feeling emotionally available to everyone around you. Your mind becomes more controlled, more selective, more difficult to disturb. Law 1. The 5-second delay. Most emotional damage happens too fast. That's the problem. People react before they think. Somebody says something irritating, and instantly the mouth responds. The voice changes. The face tightens. The emotion takes control first. But powerful people create space between feeling and action. Just 5 seconds. That small pause can save relationships, protect dignity, and prevent regret. Imagine someone saying something disrespectful during a conversation. Normally, the emotional brain wants immediate response. Defend yourself, attack back, win the moment. But the 5-second delay interrupts emotional impulse. Instead of reacting automatically, you breathe once and observe. Now something interesting happens. You start noticing things emotionally reactive people miss. Tone, intentions, insecurity. Sometimes you realize the comment was not even important enough to deserve energy. Other times, you recognize the person is trying to provoke you emotionally. That tiny pause gives clarity, and clarity changes behavior. Many arguments survive because nobody pauses long enough to think. 2 emotional minds crash into each other instantly. Pride takes over. Voices rise. Then, later, both people regret things they said. The 5-second delay prevents emotional momentum from controlling your actions, and the more you practice it, the calmer your presence becomes naturally. Law 2. Selective ignorance. This law makes emotionally immature people furious, because many individuals survive through attention, not truth, attention. That's why selective ignorance becomes powerful. Not everything deserves acknowledgement. Some comments are bait. Some criticism is meaningless noise. Some conversations exist only to drain your spirit. Wise people learn how to let certain things die naturally through lack of attention. Think about family gatherings again. There's often one person who constantly makes passive-aggressive remarks. Little comments, little stabs, small attempts to create discomfort. Most people instantly react because silence feels uncomfortable, but selective ignorance removes oxygen from unnecessary tension. You hear the comment, You recognize the intention, and you simply move forward without emotionally feeding it. This confuses many toxic personalities because they expect emotional participation. Without participation, their behavior loses satisfaction. Now, this doesn't mean becoming blind or weak. Real selective ignorance is strategic. You are choosing peace over pointless emotional expenditure. That's maturity. Because emotionally disciplined people ask an important question: will this matter tomorrow? If the answer is no, many times silence is smarter than emotional involvement. Law 3. Physical distance. Human energy is deeply affected by environment. People underestimate this constantly. Spend enough time around stressful personalities, and eventually your nervous system changes. You become tense without noticing, more irritable, more mentally exhausted. That's why physical distance matters. Not every relationship requires constant closeness. Some people are only manageable in small amounts. And honestly, accepting this can save your mental health. There are relatives you can love better from distance, people you can respect better with boundaries, conversations that become healthier when shorter. This is not hatred, it's emotional intelligence, because proximity increases influence. The more access someone has to your daily emotional life, the more impact they have on your mental state. And many people keep themselves trapped because they fear creating distance. They feel guilty, they worry about judgment. So they continue exposing themselves to emotional exhaustion repeatedly. But distance often creates clarity. You think better, sleep better, feel lighter. Sometimes you don't realize how heavy certain people make your life feel until you finally step away long enough to breathe properly again. And no, protecting your peace does not make you selfish. Constant emotional suffering helps nobody. Law 4. The Grey Rock Method. This method is simple but incredibly effective, especially against people who constantly seek emotional reactions. The idea is this: become emotionally uninteresting to manipulators, like a grey rock, plain, calm, difficult to emotionally engage. Some people survive by creating dramatic emotional exchanges. If you become emotionally flat around them, they slowly lose interest because the reward disappears. For example, imagine someone constantly trying to pull you into gossip. Normally, people engage emotionally. They react, they add opinions, they feed the conversation. But the Grey Rock method changes the dynamic. Your responses become short, neutral, boring. Maybe. I don't know. That's unfortunate. No emotional fuel, no excitement, no dramatic participation. At first, manipulative personalities often push harder because they sense the emotional door closing. But eventually, many of them stop trying because emotionally calm people are difficult to feed from. This method works especially well with people who constantly create emotional circles around themselves. Instead of fighting their chaos directly, you quietly stop feeding it. That silence changes everything. Law 5. Ending toxic small talk. One of the biggest hidden drains in life is unnecessary emotional conversation, especially conversations built around negativity. Some people spend hours every week discussing problems, criticizing others, revisiting old family drama, or complaining endlessly about life. And after enough exposure, your own mind becomes heavier too. That's why emotionally strong people learn how to redirect or end draining conversations gracefully. Not every discussion deserves long engagement. You don't need to sit through endless negativity just to appear polite. Sometimes short responses are enough. Sometimes changing topics protects the atmosphere, and sometimes leaving the conversation entirely is healthiest. This becomes especially important with toxic relatives. Many people feel trapped around family negativity because they believe blood relationships require unlimited emotional tolerance. But emotional exhaustion does not become healthy just because it comes from family. You can respect people while still protecting your inner stability, and mature people understand this. Law 6. The price tag mindset. This final law changes everything once it becomes part of your personality. Start treating your attention like something expensive. Not everybody can afford it. Not every conflict deserves it. Not every emotional demand receives immediate access. Think about wealthy people protecting valuable things. They don't leave gold lying around carelessly. They protect it, limit access to it, treat it carefully. Your attention deserves the same respect, because whatever receives your consistent emotional energy slowly shapes your life. If drama receives it, your life becomes dramatic. If negativity receives it, your thinking becomes negative. If peaceful goals receive it, your inner world becomes calmer and clearer. That's why powerful people become intentional with focus. They guard mornings carefully, protect quiet moments carefully, choose relationships carefully, not because they hate humanity, because they understand emotional cost. And once you fully adopt this mindset, you stop feeling emotionally cheap. You stop reacting instantly to every opinion. You stop chasing validation from difficult people. You stop giving unlimited emotional access to individuals who repeatedly disturb your peace. Your energy becomes more disciplined, more valuable, more protected. That is the true meaning of guarding your gold, not becoming cold-hearted, not becoming isolated, simply refusing to waste your life force carelessly, because peace is expensive, and emotionally wise people stop giving it away for free. So let's bring this back to where we started. Attention is not just focus, it's not just time, it's your emotional energy in motion, and every single day, life gives you chances to spend it or protect it. Most people don't notice how much they lose until it's already gone. A few unnecessary reactions here, a few emotional conversations there, a few moments of anger that felt justified in the moment, and slowly, without realizing it, their peace starts shrinking. Now think about what changes when you start living differently. You don't react to everything anymore. You don't carry every comment in your head. You don't let random behavior decide your mood for the entire day. And something powerful happens. Your mind gets quieter, your emotions become steadier, and your presence starts feeling different to other people. Some will respect it, some will not understand it, and some will even try harder to get a reaction from you at first. But that's expected, because people who are used to emotional access don't like losing it. Still, you stay calm, not because you are trying to prove anything, but because you finally understand something important. Your attention is not a public resource. It is personal power, and once you start treating it that way, your life begins to change in ways that are not loud, but deep. Less stress, less mental noise, more control over your reactions, more clarity in your thinking, and more respect for your own peace. So here's the final reminder from this video. You don't need to respond to everything. You don't need to carry everything. And you definitely don't need to give everyone access to your emotional world. Protect your attention like it matters, because it does. If this message hit you, don't just watch and move on. Take a second and reflect on where your energy has been going lately. And if you're serious about changing that pattern, like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe to stay connected to more content like this. And before you leave, drop this in the comments. I guard my attention